Hey, everybody. Second interview on the Bindrune Recordings channel. And this one is a lot of fun for me because these guys have been friends for a lot of years. And we've been working together since 2009. And it's one of those bands where there's a lot of people that may not know a lot about them. So we thought this would be kind of a fun thing to do. And without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Nechochwen. We've got Aaron Carey and Andrew DeCogna. Gentlemen.
Hello.
Greetings.
Okay, everybody, here's the scoop. Aaron's having some mic technical difficulties, so we've got him coming through a cell phone plugged in front of a microphone. So let us know that you can hear him. Say something, Aaron.
How's everybody doing tonight?
It'll take a second. There's like a slight delay between here and YouTube.
Okay.
Keeping
Let
it
me
under
know
the
if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, then
we'll have to
I guess I'll talk louder.
We'll just have to express yourself through the medium of dance.
Yeah.
interpretive dance. You're loud and clear on my end here. I can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool.
Cryptic hand signals.
We're probably set then. Yep, I hear you, bud. So I think we're good to roll. I guess.
Thank you, Todd.
This project has been going
cheers.
Since in 2008, I guess was when your first album came out?
Yes, 2008.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with Angel Rust. Because really, I mean, you guys did 3 releases with that band, and was this like the first band you guys were in together?
You could bring it back a little further, can't you?
Go for it.
I'm sorry.
Aaron, I said you could bring it back a little further, can't you? You could bring it back to Harvest.
Yes, absolutely. I think I had kind of a strange beginning of this. 1992, I heard a demo of a local band called Dethroned. And they put out a demo called Darker Birth that was 3 songs of really good, like surprisingly good for the area, death metal. And that's what I was really into at the time. And I think I was 15. And they got in contact with me somehow because I don't know, at the time there wasn't that many people that played that style of music around here. And
around here, tell everybody where you're from.
Wellsburg, West Virginia, Brooke County. It's about 40 miles west of Pittsburgh in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. And Andrew grew up in Wheeling, which is 16 miles south of me.
Yeah, 15 miles, 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah. We didn't grow up knowing each other, but I think we had people in similar circles. It was kind of, eventually we would have met anyway, I think. So this band Dethroned was not playing shows and things yet, and I was kind of like a little kid, and they were older guys and wrote some really awesome riffs, and so that went on for a while. And without getting too technical in the details of that, eventually kind of fizzled, and I went off to college. And I think around the same time, Andrew joined a later incarnation of that band for a few demos. Was in the Sign of 4.
Yeah, I think it was around 95. So were you in college in 95?
I was a junior turning senior in high school.
Yeah, I think it was 95 that I joined Dethroned, and in 94. And we put out a demo and a full length. So I think I was in there till maybe 96, mid 96.
They had this rehearsal space in between where I live and Wheeling, Jam House, this little rental place. And first time I ever saw Andrew, this had to be about 95. I think I went down there. Some girl from high school went in there to check it out. You guys are having like a free show thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the curtains up and came out corpse paint. And
the place had about a 7-foot ceiling, and we were breathing fire. Like it
was like horribly, accident waiting to happen, but
Oh,
it was pretty awesome and overwhelming at the time, and very hot on that plane, and all these people were packed in, and there was some foreign exchange student from Spain, and she's like, and just smack right over. And I was like, this is pretty crazy for this area. So fast forward, what was that, 95, 96, fast forward, went through college, and life happening, both of us, and I think it was 2002 was Harvest had put out Gleam in the Night, and I think I did some classical guitar work for that. Came home for a weekend from college or something and recorded it for that, and really good atmosphere on that disc. And that's how I hooked up with Dark Horizon Records. They heard the classical stuff, and they said, Typhus from that label, if you ever do an album of that stuff, kind of like October Falls or something, if you ever do an album of just classical guitar, folk stuff, whatever you do, I would put it out. So eventually that's what happened. I was compiling stuff that eventually became Algonquin Mythos. Andrew, I think you did maybe, well, you produced it obviously, but I think you did some backing vocals, maybe even some
I dabbled. I contributed what I would say minimally to the album. Yes.
Yeah.
Percussion, and I did some background vocal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that sorry, something just, you see me?
Yeah, I can see you just fine.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, something came. I've never seen this before. You giving me a virus, Marty, with this program?
I have a Mac. No, of course not.
My son has a Mac. I do not have one. But anyway, I think I'm skipping over some stuff as far as the original question that you asked. That was 2002. We did that Turmoil and Sea. Harvest. Yeah,
we did the Harvest. We did the Harvest. I guess we didn't call it a demo. We called it a promo. It was a 5-song thing, and that was Aaron and I's first real collaboration. And I knew right away, I wanted to work with this guy further. So Angel Rust had already been a band since like the end of '99, so we were a few recordings in as a band, and I'd been the only guitar player until that point, guitar player vocalist. And, after we had worked together and I think we kind of started to click, I said, hey man, I want another guitar player, and Angel Rust, and I think you're the guy. So here's the songs. Would you consider it? And he heard it and he dug it. So there it was. So we were together in Angel Rust from, it was probably late 02, early 03, because that album came out in 03 and you weren't on. It was like you joined right after that record came out, that self-titled, and that was 03.
Yeah.
So it was right around 03 that you joined, I think. And we were together till 09. So.
And if anybody would like to check Angel Rust out, I do stumble across the titles on like eBay on occasion, usually for pretty cheap. And Andrew, you might have some copies too. And you guys still have some?
I have a few left over.
I might have some too.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're on Bandcamp or not.
The final one would be the only one. If somebody hasn't heard it, I'd say go listen to the last record, The Nightmare Unfolds, because I think that was truly like the best representation of us. It's still a solid record. I could listen to it now and not cringe. I think our best ideas came forth on that record. I really did.
Yeah, it's just that we just had to work together for a while. Kind of experiment with like what's this supposed
to be? Any other band matures, yeah, and that was around 09 that came out. We dissolved shortly after that, but I'm glad we ended on that note. And it obviously, when the band dissolved, it didn't have anything to do with Aaron or I, because it was kind of almost transitional, I would say, because of Nechochwen starting up around, was it 08?
Algonquin came out was 08.
We recorded Algonquin in 2006, and I think it took Darker Eyes in 2 years.
So it was 08 when it
before that came out.
Yeah.
At the same time, staying a little further back in time, right when we started doing Harvest, before I even joined Angel Rest, we went out, I don't know, it was July or August. It was real hot out. We went out in the woods and did a sweat lodge. And it was like right after I met him. And he brought his acoustic. He's like, I've been messing around with these ideas acoustically. And I was like, well, that's, right up my alley too. So we combined ideas. That became Forest of the Soul. So that project came about at the same time. So we kind of got to hone the acoustic, classical, ethnic, other categories, stuff of what we're interested in musically with that project, and then hone the metal side with Angel Rust. So, in my mind, those were both like the footprints into what Nechochwen's become, which is kind of a cross between those two things without the Celtic elements, I guess, the Force of the Soul, and with a little more grim elements in Nechochwen. I think that Angel Rust was a little more melodic, Swedish death metal-ish stuff.
Yeah. And this was more melodic black metal, black thrash tinged stuff. Yeah, what it turned into. Yeah.
Well, for the people that don't know, Aaron, you are a classically trained guitarist, and flamenco is one of your specialties. What are some other styles that you're fluent in?
I don't know if I would say flamenco. I know a little bit, but man, that's a very specialized thing. And there's some monster players out there. I might dabble in it a little bit, but I studied Renaissance, Baroque, classical stuff in college for 6 years. And later on got a bit into jazz too. But mostly I love the early medieval Renaissance stuff, Bach, and writing my own classical pieces too off that. But that's what I do very often, just for a job, is playing restaurants and weddings and things like that, like solo classical guitar stuff and a little bit of acoustic finger style. And I love the Michael Hedges, Phil Kagi acoustic steel string stuff as well, finger style, and just something I've been interested in for 20, 25 years now.
Well, I can see why then you wanted to. I mean, you started putting out classical, self-released classical stuff, but then what gave you the idea to move forward as Nechochwen and start essentially as a solo artist?
On that end, I think it was that when I would go to events that celebrated either Native or pioneer history, powwows, rendezvous, battle reenactments, things like that, it was a very common thing for me to read through historical narratives, Alan Eckert's books, and things of that nature, local history books. And I would see these books and people playing, say, a hammered dulcimer or a fiddle or somebody playing the Native American flute. And, I want to express myself that way as well. And I don't think that my specialty would have been writing those sort of books. I do like to write, but I don't know if I have it in me to trace all that history and make it into a story. I wanted to know, what did it look and smell and feel like back then? What did it feel like in 1600? What did it feel like 10,000 years ago in my area? What captures my imagination with that? I wanted to channel that into music, and I don't know, it just kind of came out. I wasn't trying to do anything different than other people. It was just kind of my thing, was to do that. And I felt like with that first record, the music it's not straight up neo-folk, like, it's not very pretty stuff. A lot of that is, I remember somebody kind of describing some of it as like irritating in a good way. And it is to me. When I listen back, some of those melodic lines are grating and a little strange, and that's what I wanted to get across. Is, you know, those were strange times back then, and just because it's on an acoustic guitar, I don't want it to necessarily be romantic or pretty or something like that. I thought, you know, there was some grimness to that.
And it was
stuff.
Violent acoustic. I mean, like Cut the Huto. Is that how you pronounce it? That song
Cut
is
the
very has an edge to it, you know.
Yes, I would put that in the irritating in a good way type of category. I'm proud of that.
Well, Algonquin was 2008. That's when Dark Horizons got that out. I was wondering how, you know, something with classical and folk instrumentation and largely all instrumental, how did that go over on a metal label in front of a metal audience?
I remember very little press, very little. Well, there was a little bit of advertising, I guess. That was a smaller label, and I think maybe overshadowed by October Falls at the same time, had a little more of a following, and was on the same label. And, you know, it was stylistically a little different, even though it was folk. And so, well, this kind of ties in with you, Marty. You probably remember this pretty well. But there was a festival, Heathen Crusade III, and I'll admit that I didn't even know about the first two. I was kind of out of the loop with all that. I would have loved to have gone to those if I'd known about them. I would have made the trip. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I drove up there in 2008, and there was Ancient Rites, Moon Sorrow, Inquisition. Who else was there? Woods of Ypres.
Yep.
Lots of bands. That Viking band from Mexico it struck me as odd, but they were good.
Was that the guys who were like holding up like stuffed like mannequins and stuff and like?
No, that was the Troll Slayer band.
Oh, yeah.
Lunarium.
Right.
Lunarium.
Right.
I think they were maybe from Ohio or something. Troll Slayer.
Yep.
But anyway, there were a lot of people that seemed into it. I remember at one point it was like story hour at the library. People were sitting cross-legged on the floor just listening to it. And they had me set up on a side stage by the bar because, you know, in between bands, people would come out to get a drink at the bar, have 15, 20 minutes when the next band's setting up. And they just didn't want a lull in the action, I guess. So I would play a 15-minute set here and there throughout, I think, 3 days or something we were there. And for the most part, it was cool. I still have some video from that. But I guess the downfall was one of my sets, Inquisition, was doing a sound check the whole time. His ear-splitting sound check. And I'm trying to play through, and I'm like, I'll just keep playing. They're paying me, so I'll just keep. And I remember you coming up to me, and you're like, man, you kept your cool through that. That was what else am I going to do?
What else
so
am I gonna do?
I think that's how we met. And I want to say Tanner, I think, was up there too.
Yep.
Working for God is Myth Records at the time.
Yeah, we were set up next to each other.
Yeah, there were some really cool people up there.
It was a great time.
And yeah, that was the most unexpected thing to do that, because I was there, even at the last minute, I think I hadn't heard much, and I was like, you sure you want me to do this? You've heard what I do, right? It's not metal. They're like, oh, we want you there. Come up. So I got up there, and it went over pretty well, considering, but they didn't have a Heathen Crusade 4, so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, all I know is you gave me the CD, and me and my buddy Matt, he was helping with the Bindrune table. We both got incredibly ill, like the flu, the crud. We drove home sicker than dogs, and all we listened to was that album over and over and over and over, because, you know, after a weekend of loud music and drinking and now the flu, the last thing we wanted was, you know, screaming ass metal the whole way home. So by the time I got home, I'm like, you know what? I'd love to take a chance on this, because it's fucking great. It's fucking great, and it's different, and there's passion in it, and like I said, there's like a lot of different dynamics, a lot of different feelings within the music. And we started working together 2010, Azimuth to the Other World. And actually, I want to direct this to Andrew because this is, you helped out. You recorded, obviously, you've recorded all the Nechochwen stuff. Mm-hmm. But this is your first creative contribution and musical contribution to a wider extent. I mean, were you comfortable adding your style to the direction Aaron was heading musically?
Well, it wasn't that odd of a transition because we had been writing together on so many levels for so many years prior to this.
True.
That it wasn't really awkward at all. It was fun for me because I could do drum ideas that I had that I didn't necessarily have to play live.
Right.
Because that's the extent of my skills as a drummer. I could play things in momentary spurts, if you will, but I could never play a whole set of this type of stuff. But I still have the ideas, and when he, would come to me with these riffs, because we grew up listening to the same extreme stuff, 9 times out of 10, he presents a riff, and I know exactly what it needs as far as a musical backdrop goes.
Yep.
So it was a pretty smooth transition. I think it was the Der Wanderer comp that really broke us through into writing and composing music as a band, like a full-fledged band, wasn't it, Aaron? Wasn't it the Der Wanderer comp?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said.
But wasn't it that the compilation that Der Wanderer?
Yeah, Der Wanderer über den Nebelmeer.
Yeah, Winter Strike.
My German. It's not that great, but yeah, that was actually came out of Belgium. Agalok, Muskox. There's a bunch of
great bands on that.
It was a great comp.
It was an honor to be on it.
It was a great song. great.
Might be a little song. It's one of my favorites, and it's probably the most unlike any of the other stuff that we've done because it was based off of a different topic. It was kind of based it off of poverty in Appalachia, which is not really the time period we're normally talking about.
Well, I think that Aaron has always been really capable at tugging at your heartstrings musically with the movements and the music that he comes up with. But I think that was the first real time that lyrically I was just like, my God, man, this is a really heart-wrenching song. Like, it really sticks with you if you pay attention to the lyrics. And I remember him coming to me and saying, like, I have this song for this compilation, but I kind of hear heavy music eventually in the song. I hear it morphing and building into this kind of heavy song, and we've never done that before. Like, how do you feel about that? And I said, oh, well, let's just try it and see. And obviously it turned out well, I think, for both of us. And I think that's what kind of made us realize, well, you don't have to do all, organic stuff. We can mold the heavy edge of what the music we grew up listening to into this, and it can fit and complement the music very well, just as well. So I think that kind of started it.
Right. That's a good question.
Just on that same topic, since you were just on there, when we were doing that song, Angel Rust had broke up we broken up maybe 6 months before that, or right around the same time.
That sounds right.
I was doing this folk and acoustic stuff in Nechochwen, like, kind of as a break from the metal we were doing. Like, I have this other stuff I like too. I'll do that on the side, and here's a label we'll put out Algonquin Mythos. It took about 6 months. I was like, I miss metal. So I think that was what led to this Winter Strike. I was like, this folky stuff's cool, but my brain's all scattered, and I need metal.
Yeah.
Like, before long.
Right.
So, anyway.
Can you see that question, Aaron?
The metal aspects of Nechochwen employ Native American scales or modes, pentatonic scales, just like everybody else, like since Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and stuff. I think we maybe use them in slightly different ways, but from what I've read, they found flutes from 9,000 years back that play a pentatonic scale, so it's been around for quite a while, and it's pretty prevalent in rock and blues and pop and everything else too. So that's really the extent of what I know is pentatonic and hexatonic scales.
I think it may
playing them differently.
I think it may technically be that. It may technically be pentatonic, but I see where he's coming from, and I definitely, from an outsider's point of view, almost, I hear a lot. Aaron will play a lot of melodies on a guitar that kind of sound like they did originate on a flute, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even really explain the way you put those notes together. There's no patterns, but they're definitely not indigenous to the roots of heavy metal. They're indigenous somewhere else. And I think that's what kind of sticks out and becomes noticeable about it. It's not your typical like Iron Maiden. It's not your typical like Iron Maiden type melodies. So if it's not a traditional Native American motor scale, it does have the impression of that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we'll use fourths in the harmonies, which have a little more, I don't know, Asian feel to them, maybe. So depends on what you get from it. But yeah, that's how I would answer that. Is mainly pentatonics come to mind. We're just using them maybe in different ways to come up with different melodies than just like a blues or something.
Well, Aaron, you've told me numerous times throughout the years that you consider yourself sort of an amateur historian. And I'm wondering, when lyrics and vocals started to enter into Nechochwen, did this interest feel like the perfect fit?
The music we're doing?
No, yeah, the concepts. You consider yourself an amateur historian, like from around your area and stuff. What were your inspirations, and did it seem like that interest in music seemed like a perfect fit? Because it's a very unique. I mean, Nechochwen, what you guys sing about is quite unique in the metal sphere.
It does. Another thing I like about what we do is I don't feel like pigeonholed into writing actual what we would consider songs. Like, don't most metal albums you hear have songs? A verse, chorus, solo. They have like a lot of them have a particular, I don't know, like a Metallica song or something, for instance.
Structure. Yeah.
I like that we could have a song that's like a minute long as a soundscape that tells a little story. It's like a little art piece rather than having to be full songs. I guess I'm thinking more like the little interludes and things on Akamon and Azimuths that they can convey a feeling. Eyes of the Missink, I think, really captures the feeling of being in a place where there's a Missink in the forest. And I think the split that we put out with Leg, Majestic Translucence, that song has some kind of vibe that makes me think of walking through the creeks around here and finding tools and arrowheads and such around. So yeah, I think it matches pretty well. My biggest challenge with that is trying not to repeat myself. Like, oh, this one's about a battle again, or this one's about, sort of whatever it is, suffering.
I think that's what every artist who, flies under the same flag, identity-wise, under whatever band name, before too long, every artist faces that, like, man, it's time to write a new album. What do I write about now? And you don't want to repeat yourself.
It never bothered AC/DC, Cannibal Corpse,
No, some people don't care, and if they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they just well. And if you're a themed band like like Bolt Thrower or something like that, what else can Bolt Thrower write about? But at the same time, Aaron and I have had the conversation. It's like, well, we shouldn't feel like we're pigeonholed into just writing about that either, because eventually that stream will run dry too. And you don't want to feel creatively inhibited by anything because it's music, So we definitely had more than one conversation, kind of rationalizing with each other. Like, it's okay to write something that's not directly related to a historic event or, a place, something like that. And just, writing something different.
Yeah, I get burnt out on it sometimes, the straight up history aspect of it. And I want to go back to the original mission of not necessarily like, here at this fort in 1768, it doesn't have to be about like, I want to know like, what was it like to hear this blood curdling shriek in battle in the 1600s as, somebody's ripping your guts out on the battlefield or something. There's a metal song right there, more like the visceral aspects of it rather than just straight up historical facts or whatever, that can get a little tedious.
Sure. But, digging into the history, the Native American history and stuff, is that giving you a wider understanding within your own studies? I mean, you've kind of really, you read on it because it's an interest to you, but.
Absolutely.
And another thing you told me in the past too, this band has opened you up to a wider network of people that have reached out to you as well. I mean, that's got to be a good feeling.
It is. That was one of the other things that I originally wanted to accomplish with this. When I had bedroom demos of 2 or 3 songs, like, this has a cool vibe to it. Like, I think I know what I want to write about. And it would be really cool if this music got out there. At first I'm thinking in my valley, in my area where I live, other people would hear this and they might say, oh man, have you met these people? They're descendants of so-and-so or whatever. Or, this guy knows a lot about Chief Cornstalk. This guy is an expert on Tecumseh, or this guy knows a lot about Lenape culture, whatever. That's what I wanted to learn more about because, there was an Indian removal here in 1830, and we don't have any reservations. We don't have any official outposts of people that were descendants in West Virginia or in Pennsylvania. You have to go to New York. It's the closest place to Seneca, to Salamanca, and talk to those folks up there.
That's there's the Adena and the Hopewell, and that was like prehistoric Native American.
Sure.
I mean, that's what the
mound builders
azimuth was based on.
Sure.
But I would imagine there's a ton of recorded history on that. Is there? I mean, other than what they find in mounds?
The Squire and Davis journals, I think that was 1848. I was at Ephraim Squire. I forget their first names. Squire and Davis went all throughout West Virginia and Ohio and mapped out all the earthworks and mounds and such. And I have that book downstairs. It's huge and monumental, and a lot of them don't exist anymore. A lot of them have been erased through farming and subdivisions and strip malls and such. And there's actually a group now that's trying to recreate those. They have some sort of geothermal imaging or whatever, satellite stuff, where they can see them just below the ground where these earthworks were out in Ohio. So a lot of that stuff was cataloged but not preserved. And some of these books is really appalling what happened to a lot of these sites that were just looted and trashed. And some people, I think, might have even had good intentions. Like, I'm going to dig this mound up and see what's in it, but if it's not cataloged or whatever, then we don't learn from it. And, it's hard to talk to people that died 3,000 years ago. We don't have much on it. And the Indians here, when people started building, Europeans started building settlements and stuff, is, you know, I've always wondered, they say in the books, oh, they didn't know anything about these ancient Indians. Maybe they didn't tell you. Maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't want to tell you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, at least it's protected now. They're not blazing down mounds to put a strip mall anymore.
There's been a lot of sites in Western PA and West Virginia that were pretty annihilated from
before
pipelines.
Isn't there like some sort of protection on that now, or no?
I can't remember the particulars, but you know,
I think it depends on where it is.
What it is and where it is.
And I think if it's on somebody's property and they own that property, then I think it's pretty much theirs to do with.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure maybe the state can get involved if they were aggressive about it, but how aggressive are they about it is a thing, you know.
This is a bit of a shift in the conversation, but I did want to say you guys probably don't think about this because I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, Andrew also runs Sacred Sound Recording Studios down in Martins Ferry, Ohio.
Yep.
And to me, I listened to a Nechochwen record, and the studio, your engineering skills strikes me as the third member of the band.
Oh,
I know you probably don't think about it that way, but
I don't.
No, I know you don't, and it's a means to an end, I'm sure. But the way you've always recorded acoustic instruments, very warm and organic, non-offensive. It just seems like the way it's supposed to sound. And I mean, I don't know. This isn't really a question. It's about a tip of the hat. I mean, your production style is very much a part of Nechochwen, and you know, also for anybody that doesn't know, Andrew also does Iron Flame and Brimstone Coven. He's also in Icarus Witch, so he's a very, very busy man. And I think just about everything I've heard out of your studio has a wonderful sound. But Nechochwen,
thank you.
the two of you together, it just, the actual sound of Nechochwen, the studio is kind of like the third member. It's where you congregate. It's where you write. You know.
I turned into a recording nerd. You know, well, I've been a recording nerd technically for decades now, but. You know, I got really deep into the nerddom of collecting mics and microphone preamps and things of the like.
It's a slippery slope. It's once you enter the dark
collection, right? But you know, with it made Aaron's playing kind of made me grow because, you know, he'd say, you know, I have this piece and he'd play it for me and it's gorgeous, and you know. I feel, okay, well, now it's up to me to record it properly and present it properly. So I definitely wouldn't just throw any old mic in front of it and say,
beat up SM57 isn't
right.
Cut the mustard.
And it's not like you couldn't achieve a good sound with that, because I'm sure that you could, but it just kind of drove me like, man, he's about to lay down this gorgeous piece. I have to bring my A game basically. So, you know, I would really, kind of obsess over, you know, mic positions, microphone choice, and he would humor me and let me experiment with different preamps, because preamps are basically like your color palette. If you were a painter, and you know, one preamp will create a different tonal end result than another preamp would. So you kind of have to feel the piece out before you know how it's going to treat it. And he would always bear with me and let me experiment with that stuff to produce that result. And I appreciate the compliment, but I would agree. I'm always super proud of the organic sounds that I capture with this guy.
Definitely. I mean, the metal stuff it sounds great, but
metal's always a struggle.
Oh, of course.
I have to add too that I always have the freedom to feel relaxed, totally be myself. You know, you're not going to perform the same every week with your music. You might have the best of intentions, and you just have a bad night in the recording. It's unavoidable. At least it is for me.
Everybody.
Sometimes you just have other stuff going on that clogs your head, and you can't really focus on what you're doing. But you know, I don't know what it's like to go into other studios. I've never done it except for a brief, I guess, unpleasant experience in college. A very rushed, crappy experience in a recording studio, and that's basically it. So I've only known this relaxed, hey, it's okay, we'll get it right, and no pressure to force anything.
That's the key of a good studio and engineer. If you got someone breathing down, they don't give a shit what you're doing.
Never like that.
Or you're feeling rushed, like click time's ticking. Why are you fucking up? Or why is this? Why is your guitar sound like shit?
Yeah.
You know,
I couldn't do it.
No, and I've always held that ethos because I'm a musician myself, and I know, you know, it's tough enough getting a good performance even when you're completely relaxed. You know, so I'd never ever try and make people feel like this is kind of time sensitive, man. You know, I'm just saying, why didn't you bring your A game? And like, you know, like he just said, no matter if you are bringing your A game mentally or physically, just some days it's just not the day.
no.
And whether it be us or if I'm recording somebody else, you know, I've been doing it long enough that I'm pretty intuitive to that. And when I see it's that kind of day, I could just stop and be like, hey, you know, I don't think today's the day. So, you know,
let's have some beers.
Yeah, let's reconvene on this day, you know, and give it another shot. And normally that's the cure-all for it.
There's a good one for you up there, Andrew.
Yeah, I did read that from Todd. Not really, and only really because, again, I've been doing this so long with everything. You know, I've been recording myself forever, so almost since I've been writing music. So it's easy for me to switch those hats.
Right.
It's I guess it's more the most difficult thing with Nechochwen, I would say sometimes, is coming up with my own ideas. With there's a lot of times where I'll have time to work on a song, and I really wish that, you know, Aaron was in the studio with me, bouncing ideas off of each other, because that has seemed to produce the best results. And he always hears things that I don't, and I think vice versa. So I've tried to make it a point lately when we're composing stuff, when it comes to drums especially, like, well, let me go back here. You sit in the control room chair, and I'll go back on the kit, and I'll play you what I hear, and then we just basically have a musical meeting about it. Like, well, I hear this. Well, okay, well, that's different. I didn't hear that in my head. I heard this. So I think the best of both worlds always comes out that way.
True collaboration.
Yes. So,
and it's usually references to something like.
We're always referencing old music.
Do you remember Gore Beyond Necropsy?
Right, exactly.
And I'll put it up on YouTube. I'm like, play that.
On the third song on God Dethroned, the Grand Grimoire, you know that part that's like, yeah. We'll always reference stuff like that. That's what I hear. I hear that beat. You know. And we remember. The thing is we can say that, and we totally understand each other. We totally know exactly what
or things that go back to Metal Maniacs days. I remember different articles and reviews and stuff in there. I remember when this one guy said this about this part, how that sounded. Yeah. So we grew up on similar stuff in a similar time. So it's good to, you know, good fuel for that chemistry.
Yes, I would agree.
Oto, I got to say, I've loved everything you guys have done, but that for me was a very special album. I cannot tell you how many times I've listened to that material before we even put it out. I mean, I've kind of stopped listening to people's stuff before a record comes out because typically by the time the record comes out, I'm sick of it.
It was super special to me because it was the first LP that I was ever on. That I ever
like actual vinyl.
Me too.
Yeah. Yes, so that was like a landmark for me.
It was like the perfect balance between folk and metal. I mean, obviously it was split down the middle, each side.
And in your defense, Marty, you were doing it. You were doing vinyl before vinyl was cool again.
Yeah, well,
for the record,
right? Had to do something. CDs weren't selling for shit, man. We're not Europe. Europe CDs sell differently than here. I mean, people.
Absolutely different. Yep.
I love CDs. I still buy them, but
and Europe's the same way. They still appreciate the format. They appreciate every physical format. It seems. Just people are more fickle over here. They prefer one format over the other, and then even within that, you know, with CDs, like I see so many people like, well, yeah, I buy nothing but CDs, but not Digipack. Fuck Digipack. You know, it's like, why hate on Digipack? You know, I mean, I don't really see a difference in if an album I like came out and it only came out on Digipack, I would buy it. You know, but I know that there are some people that were like, no, you know.
For me, it is releasing stuff. It's less of a footprint, less of a carbon footprint.
Footprint, right? At least it's
an ecological impact. It's less plastic, you know.
And I think the when Digipack was like a newer, cooler thing back in the day, like in the 90s, it just circumstantially a couple of really seminal albums for me came out on Digipack, or at least I got them on Digipack, like Storm of the Light's Bane. When that came out, I acquired it and it was Digipack.
I had that too, yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't know, it kind of sticks with me. It just so happened to be these really influential albums to me came out in this format, so that's why I've always liked it myself. Yeah, I don't see what people dislike about it. But.
Would you say that Otto was maybe a bit more of a focused realization of where, at the time, you wanted Nechochwen to be musically?
It would be convenient to say yes, but I would be lying. No, that was a really rough time in my life, and there's a lot of scattered emotions that were brought in, kind of polar opposites. You know, that first half is really clean and emotional, but, you know, acoustic, and the second half was, I don't know what, I was going through a lot of stuff during that time, and I mean, I like the album a lot still. It's not my favorite one, but there's stuff that we did on that one that we've never done before or since.
The last song on that album is...
It's super epic, but
two-way.
Oh my God.
On the Wind is my personal favorite on that one.
Yeah, I might agree with you, Marty, on that. Becky Kalaleti Way, I think is probably my favorite on there.
I mean, of the metal songs, Hey Ahona has got a really cool vibe and it's unique, but the last song is just so utterly crushing. It reminds me of Angel Corpse, but better, if that makes sense. They're just more driving and
pretty huge compliment.
Pushing riffs and just razor sharp. Very, 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 very cool.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't remember where a lot of that song came from. I don't remember doing that. Was I think my mom was real sick and just going through a really bad time during that. But I don't know. Sometimes when you're going through a really bad time, you come up with really creative things. I don't know why that was. And I listen back to it now. And I'm like, that was pretty cool. Like, I don't remember coming up with it. I remember doing the acoustic stuff on the other side of the record, the A side, being at work in between lessons, in between teaching guitar students, I would come up with this idea, or I'd experiment with this tuning and write it down. And it seemed like that stuff was a little more concrete. I still have notes taken of different parts. And at the time I had bought this, another classical, this Pax Mall, it's like a rosewood back and sides El Salvadorian guitar. And I was kind of high on that at the time, and it's a real punchy guitar, and eventually went back to the classical that I've been playing since 1998. After that, all the stuff after that. But yeah, it just has a unique sound that we didn't have before, since maybe because of that guitar and just because of the approach. I think the production's a little different too. Do you remember, Andrew, like we had that album done, and then we did something different to it, almost like a filter of some sort. I remember you just having a warmer sound in the way that you mastered it. I forget what you did.
Well, I think
you mastered for vinyl for the first time. You know,
it was. I think it might have been the very first time I mastered anything for vinyl, and I started because I'd never done that before. I researched it, and I knew that vinyl can't reproduce the same frequencies that say a CD can. So I kind of started focusing on that. And I mean, I don't know if it was a filter. It was basically like an EQ curve that rounded off the extreme highs and the extreme lows, because I was afraid, from what I read, that those extreme highs and extreme lows could cause distortion at the end product once the record is pressed. And I didn't want to do that, obviously. So, I kind of rounded it off. But I think besides that, the guitar tone and the drum tones, it's just a darker sounding record than anything else we've done. Like if you compare it sonically to Azimuth's or Heart of Akamon, the new split, I think it's the darkest sounding one.
Yeah,
but warm and dark, kind of like a tape.
Sounded like it.
Yeah,
sounded like Azimuth's a little bit at first. You mastered it a certain way, and we were both like, that sounds like a cassette tape. It's like warm, Yeah.
Well, the record itself sounds fantastic. It really does.
I think it fits the atmosphere of the song.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe I need to spin it again. It's been a while.
It's been a little while for me too. It's been a while for me too.
When we were remastering stuff from that for the Ancient Pulse, it was, had to revisit that stuff. But I think we basically went directly to, let's do these two songs, what we pick, On the Wind and
Yeah. And there were a lot of things that we've learned in, almost 10 years that I think diving back into those songs, I was like, wow, really? We did this way? Okay. And got to do it a little more justice now. But as a whole, that record, I think, sounds incredibly cohesive. Every song sounds like it's holding the next song's hand, and carries you through as one long listen. And no songs stand out as like sonically different. It sounds sonically very cohesive, I think.
The staging, the tracks, the way the tracks all flow, it is perfect. I mean, it's perfect, whether it was conscious or not.
Him and I both, I think you may say overthink that and over obsess over song order and album flow. I've always thought about that. It's one of the most important things in the world to me. Like if I have a collection of songs in front of me, the way they follow one another and which song follows the next song is very, very important to me. And I truly feel that it makes or breaks whether the listener is going to sit down for the duration and absorb the whole piece of music or not, or walk away at the third song or the fourth song or something.
Yeah.
So
it's a question from Metal Madness 66. I gathered Nechochwen was not really a realistic live entity. Not really. We're not really.
I mean, not full blown, but we've done it before.
Maybe. I said never say never, but our mission is more to make records.
Yeah.
That sounds cliche, but really, I want records that I made to be out there when I'm gone. Like, I want a legacy of that, of like, he made this cool record. These guys got together and made these records, and we still have them. Not that playing live shows and going to live shows isn't important. Andrew does it all the time with these other bands. It's just this particular one, I don't know.
It's not conducive. I mean, we're only two people, and we orchestrate it.
Maybe to rehearse with a band, with my schedule, my life, the way that I've set up my life, my family and my work and things like that. I do play out all the time, but I play as a solo musician. And I just don't I can't say that I don't have the time. I don't make the time. I don't make it a priority to have a working metal band. Andrew has three of them. I don't know how you do it, man. At my age, you're older than I am. You keep 3 amazing bands going live, and it's awesome.
Yeah, time management.
My focus is, if we rehearsed, again, I'm never say never as far as that, but if we rehearsed with a live Nechochwen metal band that's going to like tour or do a fest or something like that.
Well, like a Bindrune fest?
Don't entrap me. Don't do it.
He's totally like setting the bait there. Yeah, I saw him setting the bait.
There's been talk. There's been jibber jabber behind the scenes. Just saying.
Well, we have recorded, or I mean, we have performed live in capacities. You can search Nechochwen live on YouTube right now, and you'll find multiple things. It's just we have to subcontract, if you will. We have to pull in friends from outside of the circle to help us out to add the layers, because Nechochwen, even in its simplest form, is normally a multi-layered entity of music at any given time. So for the 2 of us to get up there to try and do it, it's impossible, or it wouldn't do the song justice. It wouldn't even really resemble the song. And other than that, then you're talking, hiring out multiple people. And, if we had access to a lot of studio or musicians for hire that we could just hand a piece of music, recorded music, to them and be like, here, learn this. We'll see you next week. And they would just show up and have it learned. That would be one thing. This area is really not like that, at least not with this type of music.
Well, I've been in contact with a guy that plays drums really well. And he said that he would love to play drums for you guys if the certain fests
I can feel this like tingling in the base of my neck when you guys start talking about stuff and these fests. Oh, we're going to bring you up to play this festival. My problem is and this is on me. It's obviously not on Andrew because he plays in 600 bands really well, is that whenever we rehearse for a live thing, it sets us back 2-3 months.
At least.
On our records that we put out.
Yeah. And it's, it's not just you. It's one of those things where, you may say, well, I have a drummer that can do this. Well, that's cool, but
I'm just saying.
I don't want to just show up to a gig and play with this drummer for the very first time. Like, that's not how I do things musically. If I'm in a band, I want to rehearse with you, and I want to rehearse with you hardcore, man.
I think he said he'd come down and rehearse, but I don't remember the conversation now.
Right.
I'm sure he does.
We'll talk about the conversation later.
The bait's getting bigger. It's just growing. But
yeah. I get it. I mean, in my own band, you're in writing and rehearsing for album mode, and then live shows enter it, and all of a sudden you have to
shift gears.
You have to have a set maintenance run through once or twice every time you get together. We have to maintain our set. We're going to put this song in. Oh, fuck. We haven't rehearsed this song. We're rehearsing this more. And yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. And you guys would have to get professional musicians that are going to come in, and they've done their homework beforehand, and you guys are going to have rehearsals before the show. I mean, I get it. And, we talk about it on occasion, me and Aaron do, and I'm not saying this fest is going to happen, but there's been talk.
Right on.
Oh, here we go. Here's the one for.
I'd like to go to your fest and drink and watch bands.
Me too.
I would love that myself.
There's
a question from Tam.
May I know what Nechochwen means? It means walks alone in the Lenape language. Walks alone.
There you go.
That was a name that a friend of mine gave me when I was 15 because I like to do my own thing. And it's just stuck with me, and it's the name I used in Dethroned. And it was the obvious choice of a project name when I started writing stuff for that Dark Horizon debut. Algonquin mythos. Stuck with that name. It just made the most sense to use it. But yeah, that's what it means. Who walks alone.
With 2015, Heart of Akamon. This was probably the album, your most violent album, the most metal album, and I think the most widespread as far as release. I mean, Nordvis was part of it. Widespread release. It's, you guys have like slowly been getting more and more fans as you go, and I think with this album is so far has been where a lot of people really started to take serious notice of your band. I mean, can you discuss the writing for this and how you perceive it and how you think other people perceive it?
Wow, where do I start with that one? It's my favorite album that we've done. It's probably the one that I revisit the most, and the one that I have probably the most nostalgic feelings about because of things that were going on in my life. In that, what was it, 4 years of writing? Because I mean, we started writing stuff for that. Started demoing stuff that became Traversing the Shades of Death. I think came first.
Yeah.
Is that the right one? And you were like, what the hell are you doing here? What is this song about? It was all if we were to release a version that had all the metal taken out of it and you heard the parts, they're kind of buried. If they were on top, it would lose the effect.
That's the exoskeleton that
you heard the original structure of that thing. The song, the focus was originally called The Vomiting Town.
I've been there.
Favorite hit. Yeah, I've been there a few times myself. But it was a town, I believe in Ohio, that I was reading about. It was just part of what was going on there, purging and purifying yourself. Was you go there to puke, the vomiting town. And then I was like, that title sucks. Let's change it.
Only in Ohio, right?
Shades of Death. And that is about an event in Eastern Pennsylvania. Our buddy James that came out to the Shadow Woods thing told me a bit of, he lives close to that, where that Shades of Death event happened. But anyway, we started on that, and we did not get started on a good note with that record at all. And I will say that, at least in my opinion, everything that I write that comes together, and Andrew helps me formulate. When it starts out, it's a mess. It's like this album is going to be terrible, and that's kind of like a good luck charm. I know it's going to turn out good if I think this stuff sucks. Nobody's ever going to want to listen to this. I'm just being honest. And it comes together, and you polish it and polish it, and that's why it takes us 4, 5, 6 years to put out a record. It's because you can't rush that stuff when it starts out rough.
What was the last song? Was it Skyhook? I don't know why that sticks out as like the last song we did.
Didn't we do like a Facebook clip of me just playing the last note of the record? Or no, that was for the split.
No, that was for the split. I'm almost positive Skyhook was the last thing we did.
Maybe so. Yeah, that sounds about right. That one, man, when you put the drums on that, I was like, this is exactly what I hear in my head. That song turned out.
Very cool instrumental.
That's the benefit of being two guys that worked together for a lot of years, and you start to know each other really well, and you share that musical space. You start completing each other's sentences, so to speak.
But I agree with him. It's my favorite album too, and when it comes on, I have most of my music collection on a little USB drive that is constantly on shuffle in my vehicle, and whenever it comes on, it instantly brings me back and to that time period, and I still love it. Like, I love the way it turned out sonically, in all aspects. I love every instrument on it and the way it was captured.
On Skyhook?
The album as a whole.
Oh yeah. There's some stuff like at Kishela McCong, the last song.
Yeah.
It goes into the like super low tune, doomy stuff on there. That's actually both of us harmonizing our vocals. That wasn't me overlaying. That was me, and you did a track that harmonized with me as well.
On the sung vocals, yeah, that wasn't the spoken word, correct? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, after the spoken word stuff, man, that still gives me chills because we never really did anything like that before. I was like, usually I come in, it's like, what do you hear here on this part vocally? I'll sing this. You want to do harmony over that? That would sound cool. Yeah, I'll do that. And then, I just started thinking about what about Dark Side of the Moon and Metal Obscured by Clouds, like these old Floyd records where David Gilmour and Rick Wright would harmonize or bounce back and forth. I was like, let's try something like that. Let's have two completely different instruments vocally, two different people harmonizing. And that's one of my favorite parts of that. I think it was really effective because that whole song was influenced by another Sweat that we did out in Ohio.
Yep.
On a ridge, Amsterdam, Ohio.
Yep.
And man, intense experience. These coyotes in the distance and just getting a lot of crap out.
I tell stories about those coyotes still to this day.
Yeah,
there were so many.
Yeah, so that was really cool to pull that together with harmonized vocals of the two people that were involved in that experience out there.
And I think it too is a nice balance. That,
how you doing, Ben?
Not every song is it kind of bounces around lyrically as far as the subject matter goes too, and I think that might have been the maybe the turning point when we both realized that that you have some lyrical freedom there, to write about different things.
There's one from Ben.
What's the percent of delegation of vocals on your albums? Is it mostly Aaron? I think
Sure.
Andrew did the...
It's all that guy.
What?
It's definitely mostly Aaron.
Yeah, I think he did some stuff on Tagayita on the first album while I was doing more of the chanting type of stuff.
Right.
He does that.
Oh,
and
thanks for the plug.
A lot of vocals all the vocals in Icarus Witch and a lot of the vocals in Brimstone Coven. Nechochwen, I think, Kishela McCong from, I don't think you did any vocals on, you might have done some of the gang vocals on that Peki Kala Leitiwe on Oto.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You might have done some on that part.
Yeah.
And, hey, the new record we're working on.
Yeah. You
have some pretty prominent, awesome stuff, I will say.
I do. Yeah, for the first time, I think. Nechochwen, I feel, was definitely Aaron's realm vocally. It's his baby, and he's the one that comes up with the lyrical concepts. So, I may help with a line or two lyrically here or there, but at its core, it's Aaron's creation and concept. So, he definitely it's his time to shine as far as Nechochwen goes vocally, for sure.
Yeah, I've never been extremely confident in the vocal realm.
But you've grown into an insanely good vocalist over the years. Yeah, and lyricist.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You've grown into an insanely good vocalist and lyricist over the years.
Thank you. Well,
I agree.
You as doing the engineering, there's a lot of times that, hey, maybe try a triplet in this cadence or something in this vocal part, and it works a lot better. So he's hearing this stuff the whole time I'm doing it and refining it to what you hear, and it wouldn't sound as good if he wasn't engineering in there. That's a huge element of it. So I guess that's how I would answer that. Is you might not hear his voice, but in the vocal department, he's definitely present because he's guiding me through a lot of this stuff. Like, hey, I think this would be cooler if you did it this way, or you're not warmed up yet. It sounds okay, but in 20 minutes, you're going to sound twice as good as you sound right now.
A lot of times, most of the time, he's got it. He owns it like 95% of it, and there might be like one line he's either struggling with words for or not the words, and he's in front of the mic and saying, I just don't know how to sing this, so I might have a suggestion there. It's like, well, I hear it like this, cadence wise, so I might give him a little, suggestion here or there. But yeah, it's definitely 95% vocally Aaron all the time.
He does a very good job too. I mean, granted, when you guys are recording, you're not playing guitar and singing at the same time, but
right,
the vocal lines that both of you write, and both all your bands, they don't typically follow. I mean, I hate that when every
blindly follows the
riff. It's so boring and unimaginative, and it's hard to get swept away in a world-building style of music if it's following the beat. It gets really tired, and that's where I think you would benefit also, Aaron. Andrew's your engineer. He can why don't you try this if you're struggling with that? It's definitely
yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of times where I've had a busy week, and I show up and I just have a fragment of an idea of what to work on that night. We've been working together in some band in some capacity, basically, except for one of us goes to Europe for a few weeks or something. Except for that span of time, we've been working together for 18 years now. Yep. And it's like, this is music, but it's almost like, your bowling league or your dart league. Like we meet here
like a language
every week, and it's like you get into it because it's your fun thing that you do. It's not work.
It's like my cathartic poker night.
Exactly. You're just hanging out with dudes, man. You're hanging with your bros.
Busting each other's balls and making music. At the end of it, it's something you can all be proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I show up with I really don't know what to do tonight. I really don't know what to write about. And we always end up coming up with something. And that's a lot of it is just bouncing ideas off of Andrew. And it always results in something good, although sometimes we just drink coffee.
Yeah. But I think that lately we've been rather productive.
Yeah.
Well, since 2015, since Akamon, you guys have been. I know Aaron feels uninspired sometimes, but I'm looking at a list here. Bleg split with Nechochwen.
Yep.
The Ancient Pulse.
Yep.
The Nechochwen Panopticon split, which is recent, and seems to be people are really shitting their pants about Nechochwen. I don't know if teaming up with Panopticon puts you in front of more people that may have never heard of you before, but
I would agree. Definitely.
I think that was a good move too.
For sure.
Well, let's start with the Bleg Nechochwen split. I mean, what kind of connection did you feel with Bleg? Why did that seem like a good split for you guys?
That focus on the sun. They write about the sun a lot, and that's a very common theme between pagan Scandinavian philosophies. I'm not sure exactly where they get their influences from or whatever, and I'm not very knowledgeable about Scandinavian religions and history in general, but the conversations that we've had with Andreas from Nordvis and with Simon, I guess it's probably pronounced different, from Bleg, is that we have a lot of the same core beliefs and philosophies. And the, I guess, ancient Scandinavian, the Sami tradition,
Mm-hmm.
is extremely similar to, especially northeastern Algonquin traditions. And I just felt a kinship there, and kind of a cool exotic twist to it too. Like, oh, you guys are from a completely different place, but we believe the same core things. And I love their music.
Yeah, they're a damn good band.
I think they're a great band. I love Blake. Yeah. So I'm very proud of that split. Very proud of both of those songs. I got to play flute on their song, and anytime I get to collaborate with the band is a great thing. I thought they had a great track. I love the atmosphere of it, and the artwork was very unique from that. It was a composite of images of West Virginia and Sweden,
Yeah, it's neat.
Superimposed.
And Andreas did a great job on that. It turned out really cool.
The image on the back, the medicine wheel of the bows that Andreas made. I gave him the idea, and I was like, "Man, I'm sorry, I haven't had time to go out and create what I'm seeing in my head." And he sent me pictures, like he went out and made it, and I was like, "That's perfect for that. Thank you." So I feel a kinship with all those guys, with the music of Siva as well, all that stuff. I love the Nordvis bands and Plague, their whole atmosphere.
Absolutely. And the Ancient Pulse, how did this come together? And did it achieve what you guys hoped? Was it kind of cleaning up shop?
I'm sorry?
Was it kind of like cleaning up shop? We've got all these things.
Well, I think we just we looked at each other and said, "Man, it's been a minute since we've done something, and maybe we should do something to remain relevant in the eyes of the listener." And I don't even know how we came up with the concept of going back in and no, you know what it was? It was our anniversary.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we had an anniversary.
And Algonquin came out in 2008.
Right. So we had that anniversary and thought, well, we should do something for it. But what? We didn't really have a lot of new material brewing, so I think we just both came to the realization, well, maybe we can dive back into some old stuff. We've definitely got some better techniques and better just studio tools and things like that, and we could probably dig back into these old songs, revamp them, and make them sound better. That way, it's not just like a collection of songs that have already been floating around the world for years now, and they sound exactly the same. We wanted to improve upon them if we wanted to re-release them. So that's what we did. And it was, I think it was the toughest thing was picking the songs. But once we did that, man, like I said, it was a kind of opening a can of worms because, some songs, when we recorded them years ago, that was 3 computers ago, recording wise, and older software. So there's all these compatibility issues, huh?
Different house you lived in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So many things were different, but we had some compatibility issues, even like opening up some of the files. But once we did, and even finding them too, but once we did, it all kind of came together, and I think it was worth doing. I definitely think it was worth doing because, besides the fact that it was our anniversary, by that point, there were some people that were coming around and, knowing who we were that maybe didn't hear that stuff before, and it was a better way to present it. So that was like the whole, logic behind that.
And then we're at the Panopticon, the Nechochwen split. That thing has been in the works for a number of years, and finally we all got it together. And people seem to be pretty blown away by it, and that's
great.
Which is great because
that's great to hear.
That's one thing with this label, doing splits. We always wanted to try to make them somewhat unique. Something that doesn't have other material that has been released at another time.
Yeah, that's dumb. I love splits, though. I love the concept of splits. I always have. It's like it's a cool underground thing, man. I think that was kind of a concept that was birthed in the underground years ago.
Yep.
You don't ever see that in popular music. So
no, there's not a lot of country splits.
Right, exactly. So I always felt like it was and it was probably a budget thing. Like, hey, we're broke, but let's go in halfsies on a 7-inch or something. So it made sense, but it also was a brilliant cross promotion for 2, like-minded and like-sounding bands.
Friends. Yep.
Yeah.
And now new material. It's in the works, and it's not just one, but there's 2 separate releases coming, which is fun to talk about. So why don't you guys lay it on the line? What's been going on?
Well, it seems like it's been a long time. Aquaman came out in 2015, which is 5 years ago. But like you were saying, like there's been a lot of stuff in between there.
There has.
We, it might seem like one of those greatest hits things or whatever, the Ancient Pulse, but I wouldn't say so much me. I laid down some newer guitar parts, with improved instruments, improved preamps and amps and such, and Andrew did the bulk of the work on that. I didn't have to do very much with that, but it was time consuming because we recorded a cover, that Aussie cover for it, and I had to redo the guitars for a couple songs, probably 3 songs on that. And at the same time, there was the Cold Fells record we did together, and all of Andrew's stuff with his other bands that he has going on too. So I've been slowly writing stuff over the past couple years, and it might seem like I'm taking my sweet time, and I kind of am. I kind of do that anyway, but I got a master's degree during this time too, and that took like a pretty solid 2 years of my life where I wasn't thinking about writing very much, and so I'm taking that time out of the equation a little bit, and we have enough we have about 30 minutes of heavy stuff right now, heavier stuff for a new heavy record, and the same time I've been compiling these acoustic pieces, and recently we went through and we had some spring cleaning in Andrew's computer, and all these files with weird names, songs like New Idea,
right?
Like Rough Idea.
Isn't that a cover?
Or the tuning, the tuning that I was in, or capo.
We do that a lot.
Songs like that, and what the hell is this? Like, I don't even remember what that is. What is capo 2?
Right.
And listen to it. Oh, I forgot about this song. And there's stuff going back to 2011, 2013,
2012, something like that. Yeah.
Sitting on the shelf, like, this didn't fit on Oto, this didn't fit on Aquaman. And it's not that it's bad stuff. It was just like kind of incomplete, not fully realized yet, and it didn't fit on those albums. It's like both time-wise and concept-wise, it wasn't ready for that. And we've had this idea, like, what are we going to do with this stuff? I think at one point we thought about putting out a series of 7 inches, which would probably be a financial nightmare.
Yeah, it would bankrupt anyone, I think.
7 inches are... Wow, it's like a promotional thing, but it's not a cheap promotional thing.
If only it were. I mean, if it were financially, practical, yeah, it'd be great, but they're not.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I had half a dozen concepts that over the last few years that just didn't seem right. And I was like, I'm just going to sit on this stuff and let it age for a while. And then we got it all together in one place. Burn it on, the rough versions of everything we have. I think there's 9 or 10 songs. And I just listened to them in what I thought would be a good order. And like, I really enjoy it. It's very minimalist and not heavy at all. Not as necessarily chaotic and grim and aggressive folk as Algonquin, but there's some darker stuff on there. And we're piecing that together for an acoustic record. I don't know which will come out first. I would say it's been 5 years since Aquaman. It might make more sense to put the heavy record out first.
We haven't really prioritized one ahead of the other. We've just kind of been trying to work on them both equally, and just whoever reaches the finish line first is who.
There you go.
Reaches it first,
Yeah. And it changes from week to week what I'm, most motivated to do.
Yep.
And yeah. So, again, I apologize to everybody that follows this music. I really do take a long time with this stuff, but I don't know how to work any other way. I just hope that you like it when it comes out. All the stuff that we do. If you enjoy it, sorry it took so long, but it was kind of necessary to take.
Well, yeah, and just know that no matter how quiet we may seem, we are constantly working on something. You know.
Yes. It's not like you're dropping an AC/DC record. You're dropping something with a lot of layering and advanced melodies. I mean, there's a lot going on these records.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once the record comes out and you like it, and it's a couple years later, like, oh man, I really like that one they did. You don't really think as much about, sure took them long enough.
Right.
Hopefully people don't think that. They're like, oh, I have this record now. Cool. In the meantime, in those 5 years, I've had 1,000 other bands I can go out and buy and enjoy too. So there's that, right?
Well, that's about all I have. But there are some questions here, and I do want to open this up. If more people want to ask some questions, now's the time. Metal Madness has got one for you.
Oh, Michael Hedges. Artists, bands that are an influence on our music. Me personally, from an acoustic standpoint, Michael Hedges, Phil Keggy, this is any great classical players, Christopher Parkening, Julian Breams, my number one classical player of all time. David Russell. The Feldsonger, the
Over
record, Imperium, stuff like that I grew up listening to. Maybe some quieter moments on Anathema Records. The vibe of My Dying Bride. Getting into metal, man, we could be here all night.
Yeah, my buddy Pat is he does Ground Zero Salem YouTube channel. He wanted to know him and I think Matt too. They both wanted to know where that heavy metal gallop comes from in your music. And I would have answered Iron Maiden, but I don't know if that's true or not for you guys.
I mean, it sounds a lot different because usually when we do that, it's tuned a lot lower than Maiden.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you could say the same about Carcass, like Heartwork era. Carcass has that same gallop tuned down to B.
Yep.
Or maybe Gorefest, like the False record or something, has a little bit of that, maybe a little grindier.
And we're both fans of all that stuff.
Thinking of gallop moments. I just, all I'm hearing in my head is Flight of Icarus when you say that. I'm trying to think of parts of our music that do that. I guess certain tradition maybe has a little gallop to it in the end.
Yeah, and the first song on Azimuth has it.
Oh, da 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 da.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Yeah.
Iron Maiden.
Yep.
For me,
we both love Maiden. Yeah, we both love them.
Everybody, it's so good.
Yeah,
Classic.
I just didn't realize that I never made the connection between the two until now.
Yeah.
You just heard the riff and it's like, this sounds cool. I don't know. It's kind of like walking backwards in your life. Like, where did I first learn that groove?
Right.
I guess it was probably somewhere in time.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, I definitely want to thank you guys for getting together doing this. I know it's kind of an odd request, but we got some kind of new technology, and I think it's a good idea to use it. And I just want to say you guys have been great friends for a lot of years. I love you, and I'm really looking forward to what's coming next.
Love you too, Marty.
Buddy.
Thank you for everything. Yeah, we're trying to write the best stuff we can, and just really appreciate everybody that listens to it. Whether you love it or like it or don't, thank you for listening.
And I do want to say in the description below, I've got the Nechochwen Bandcamp page. I've got for the US stuff, and also the Bindrune Web Shop, and for Europe, also the Nordvis site. Anybody that's interested maybe is coming upon Nechochwen for the first time, please go check out their Bandcamp page and dig in and listen. And it shouldn't be too hard because everything is pretty much available other than the first album. I don't have it through any of my channels. I think the guys have some, but yeah. And thank you all. And also you need to check out Iron Flame, Brimstone Coven, Icarus Witch. There's so many projects. Drawing a blank.
That.
Infirmary, Unwilling Flesh, Moon Throne. I don't know how widespread that was.
Not very.
Is there an internet presence for Moon Throne?
I don't think so at all.
Forest of the
Soul. There was like there's a Swedish black metal band that used that name like in the late 90s and ran with it. So I don't think there's any web presence for mine.
That demo, that Dethrone demo I was talking about is up on YouTube. Dethrone Darker Birth. If you want to hear Northern West Virginia death metal, black death metal, whatever, circa 1992. I don't remember anybody else around here doing that stuff that early. I wasn't even on that. I was like 14 or 15.
Yeah, we were just fans.
That was before either of us joined that band, but they were, pretty, I think, pioneering in this area.
Absolutely.
Around the time of Rochevore.
Yep.
Southwest Pennsylvania,
Yep.
Sub Effect.
Yep.
Who else was around? Mythic.
Yep.
In Weirton. Mythic, Morning in the Winter Solstice. You remember that one, Marty?
Oh yeah, I have it on
I'm
cassette.
sure you do.
I'm sure Sathanos was around back then too.
Yeah, Lethal Prayer, Sathanos. Trying to think who else was around back then. Incantation. I don't know if they were down this way at that time, or if they were still out east. But man, it's bringing back memories of that stuff.
Right on.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, you can find it on YouTube. That Dethrone Darker Birth demo. It's just pretty awesome for early death metal in this area, I guess.
Well, right on. I guess we're going to wrap it. We've been going on for about an hour and a half, and I think that's probably good. And this will be archived up on the site, and it's locking up. Can you hear me still?
I can hear you.
I can hear you, but you're frozen up.
Well, we'll end it then. For things are acting weird for some reason. But thank you for watching and help spread the word. We really appreciate all of you. You two guys, hang on. I'm going to disconnect, but I want to talk to you for a sec.
Okay.
Okay. See y'all later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
And broadcast.